Welcome back to my channel. We've got some big updates today, and this is your December 10th update regarding the next stimulus package and what's going on with negotiations, including how inflation is going to affect what happens in this stimulus package. Now, Bernie Sanders is trying to include a stimulus check for seniors, but inflation seems to be our biggest threat in regards to getting that done. So let's discuss the details, but before we jump into it, do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and share this content with anyone who you think might find this helpful. This is a community for seniors, and my job is to be a voice for you to make sure that President Biden keeps his promise to increase Social Security benefits, increase SSI, SSDI, and VA benefits as well, on top of hopefully having a stimulus check for seniors as well. So thank you for being a part of our community, and if you really want to support my work, subscribe to my second channel. The link to that is going to be in the comments of this video, and on that channel we're going to have some updates as well, but it's mostly going to be a community where we play bingo. I'm going to be on camera with a live chat so you can chat with me and chat with the community. You can play bingo with me. I'm going to be giving away stimulus checks as well, hopefully once a week, and I'm hoping actually even more than that, depending on how big the channel gets. So please subscribe to that channel. The link is going to be in the comments of this video. All right, so at this point, most of you know that Bernie Sanders is trying to include a stimulus check for seniors in this next stimulus package. He wants it to be at least $1,000. Some have been pushing for as much as $2,000, and President Biden acknowledged it himself, but said it could be as low as $800. Of course, there's always a chance it could be left out completely, especially with the news of inflation being so bad. But again, Bernie Sanders continues to push to have it included. Now, everything right now is about inflation. Prices are going up, and the CPI data just came out showing that inflation went up even more to 6.8%. Now, this article is titled, "Inflation Surged 6.8% in November, even more than expected, the fastest rate since 1982. So, with inflation being so bad and apparently being prolonged, no longer transitory, and experts think it's going to last for about another year, people like Joe Manchin are digging in and saying, hey, if we have so much inflation, we should pump the brakes on approving more stimulus. So a lot of people are thinking that Chuck Schumer's deadline of Christmas is not going to get done because of inflation and Joe Manchin holding out. Now, on the other side, we have people like me that would say, well, hey, if we have inflation being so bad and we have seniors on a fixed income, like these are the things that Bernie Sanders is saying, we have seniors on a fixed income with Social Security benefits that have not been keeping up with inflation for basically the last 20 years. Then we have inflation currently at record highs. It kind of makes sense that actually seniors need the help even more than ever, right? So when the price of gas is going up, the price of food, the price of rent, utilities, gas, heating, everything across the board, basically everything is going up, especially when it comes to rent, food, gas, and buying used vehicles. And inflation rose 6.8% from a year ago in November, which is slightly higher than expected. They expected 6.5. Excluding food and energy, the CPI increased 4.9%, which was in line with expectations. So it seems like food and energy have been rising even more than experts expected, which is not a good sign when winter's coming and we're about to have utility bills go through the roof. So with that said, basically, conservatives are saying we shouldn't do the stimulus checks for seniors. Then we have Bernie Sanders saying this is another reason why we do need the stimulus checks for seniors. So you can see that it's completely frustrating because we have people like Joe Manchin saying, hey, let's pump the brakes. Let's see how inflation goes. And reports are actually saying that Joe Manchin has been getting upset this week, saying that he is fed up with President Biden's stimulus plans. And he is quoted as saying, we've done everything we can to help the people. But that's quite frankly not true. Remember, President Biden promised to increase Social Security benefits, and he even said he was going to try and do a stimulus check for seniors. So if we have Social Security benefits which have not been increased in accordance with inflation for basically the last 20 years, how is that doing everything you can do to help seniors? So I really wish I could ask Joe Manchin that question, but let's quickly take a look and see what Joe Manchin said. Manchin may slam the brakes on passing Biden's social and stimulus package law for now. Speaking to reporters, he brought up how the federal government has spent $5.4 trillion in stimulus package money over the last 2 years. And he said, we've done everything we can to help people. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, a crucial swing vote, doesn't sound like he'll give the green light to President Joe Biden and his $2 trillion stimulus package anytime soon. Now, this is in line with the fact that a few months ago he said we should do a strategic pause or pump the brakes on approving the next stimulus package, but it's kind of a complicated situation where we have basically the narrative of President Biden promised to increase benefits, right? This is something that he promised on the campaign trail. Then we have the fact that COLA adjustments have not been keeping up with inflation, especially the last 5 years. And on top of that, inflation is getting even worse. And Joe Manchin is saying, well, we've done everything we can. When in fact, we haven't. We still haven't even completed the previous promises of increasing benefits and doing the stimulus checks specifically for seniors. So currently in the White House, we have Chuck Schumer waiting for the parliamentarian to tell him exactly what is going to be allowed and not be allowed to remain in the stimulus package that was approved in the House. Remember, 2 weeks ago, the House approved a framework for the stimulus package, but now it's been sent to the Senate. The parliamentarian is parsing through it, and a couple of things are going to be taken out, specifically things like immigration reform and potentially even some parts of the Medicare expansion. And with that said, Chuck Schumer's original plan was to try and bring the stimulus package to a vote next week and try and have it fully approved before Christmas. Now, again, with inflation coming in so high, this CPI data is making Joe Manchin feel even more emboldened to try and stop the stimulus package from happening. Now, we've heard this before. Joe Manchin is constantly getting in the way, and eventually they find a way to get it done, right? They'll put some funding in the bill for things in his state, right? For coal mining in West Virginia, or creating more infrastructure in his state, or creating blue-collar jobs, things to kind of scratch his back, which is a little messed up, but we all know how politics work. So currently, we have Chuck Schumer still pushing for that Christmas deadline and still trying to bring this to a vote next week, but we have Joe Manchin digging in even harder. And we have Bernie Sanders pushing just as before for a Medicare expansion to include vision, hearing, and dental, and that specific stimulus checks for seniors to help them cover medical expenses until Medicare is permanently expanded, and of course, until Social Security benefits are expanded as well. So a lot going on, folks, and we should have a lot of updates in the next couple of days, so don't forget to subscribe, and I will keep you posted as things develop. Now, as far as inflation, this clip does a really good job of explaining exactly what's going on and why this inflation has been so bad and why we expect it to continue for about another 12 months. So if you'd like to stick around and watch this clip, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.
First of all, big picture, what did you learn from this report? Obviously, these numbers are not good.
Yeah, I think the technical term is everything is up. Energy and gas, as you just said, is up a lot, but other things are up as well. And that's really the issue here with inflation. It's rising from what it was. It's persistent and it's widespread. I think those are the three things that we're looking at here. And there may be more to come, I think, which is not necessarily in this report, but two particular areas stand out. One is that I believe it's probably too early for the wage gains that we've seen out there to be priced in to actual consumer pricing. That may be to come. There may be more housing inflation, which has been on the rise to price in to the index here. So it's not just that it is where it is now, which is a 39-year high, but the issue is there may be more to come when it comes to pricing. And obviously, so far, wage gains have not kept pace with inflation, and that means decline in standards of living.
I mean, Jason, there is good news, right? I made a big list here. In the past month, jobless claims are at a 50-year low. The unemployment rate is back where it was before the pandemic. Housing demand sky high. We know stocks are doing great. People are able to save money. But to the average consumer, and I certainly hear this when I'm out there talking to folks, if they're paying more for milk and eggs and gas, does any of that other stuff really matter?
Yeah, look, you just said is really important. A lot is going right in the economy. It is great that we're not sitting here now talking about 10% unemployment. We're not talking about continuing to be in a deep recession. But yes, prices are up. You know, some people blame the media. People don't need to wait for the CPI to know how much they're paying for things. People are actually quite expert at figuring out the CPI on their own. And Steve is exactly right. This isn't just one item. This is every item. Some things this month are high, unusually high. Gasoline prices will come down. But there's some other prices that are probably going to actually go up more in the future. So I don't think this is changing very much anytime soon. I don't think there's a whole lot the White House can do about it. But for the Federal Reserve, a better economy and higher inflation both tell them they need to continue to pivot to get this under control.
It seems the message is clear, Steve Leesman. Looking at the latest numbers from you guys as CNBC's new poll, the president's approval rating at 41%, his economic approval only 37%. I'm very curious to hear, I don't know if you have the breakdowns, what the approval rating is with Democrats and independents.
Well, when it comes to overall views on the economy, Republicans are much more pessimistic about their current assessment of the economy and their future assessment than Democrats are. But Democrats aren't dancing in the streets either. That's one of the interesting things here. When we polled for Donald Trump, Republicans were always relatively optimistic on the economy,
Yep.
less so for Democrats. But when we look at our CNBC All-America Economic Survey, what we find is that Republicans are very pessimistic, and Democrats are, not as optimistic as Republicans were under Trump. And what we find is that these inflation numbers are really eroding people's views on the economy and, of course, people's views on the president, as well as COVID, by the way. His approval on handling COVID is also underwater for the first time in our polling since we began when President Biden took office.
So, Monica, not good news for the White House, not good news for people who are running for office as Democrats next year. And obviously, the White House was anticipating bad news when it released a statement last night that said prices, specifically energy prices, have already come down. They're going to keep coming down in the weeks to come. Look, we know the administration's economic messaging hasn't always been great. But I wonder, is it even possible to message your way out of this? Going back to my first point to Jason, or do you just have to hang on until prices come down?
Well, that's exactly what the White House attempted to do yesterday, Chris. They tried to get ahead of this. They did indicate these numbers would be quite sobering and tough. And the way that they're going to try to frame and spin this today, once the formal report now is out, senior officials indicating they're going to say this report is backward looking, that there are things on the horizon that are likely to improve, like gas prices, which we are already seeing them trend down. Things like wheat, things like pork, things like used car prices. Some of those are starting to come down slowly. But of course, the broader picture and the headline here cannot be mistaken, and the White House is keenly aware of that. And so they're going to attempt to pivot to things they believe will help Americans understand, especially those feeling the pinch right now, about how they could be helped with the president's legislation and economic agenda that still hasn't passed. But things like extending the child tax credit, helping with health care, elder care, child care, things that would be a part of Build Back Better if that does indeed pass. So, of course, it is still tied up in Congress. They're going to pivot to try to make that messaging point, Chris. But let's be frank, over the last few months, this is a White House that has said inflation was not transitory. They downplayed it at times. And now, of course, we know from Fed Chair Powell, who testified, indeed, that that's not the case and that this will likely linger into next year, that, of course, this is going to be a problem and a headache for the White House, not just on a messaging front, but when it comes to a policy front as well, because soaring inflation has also been something that critics have used to tell the president that this agenda and what he wants to put into the economy with the multi-trillion-dollar spending may not be appropriate either. So the White House really juggling this on multiple fronts.
Yeah, the implications are very broad. So, Jason, if you had a crystal ball, I'd ask you when you think prices are going to start coming down. But unless you do have one, maybe the better question is, what are you watching in the coming months to tell you that some of this inflationary pressure is easing?
Right. Well, the pressure that matters most for consumers seems to be things like gas prices. There, I do have a crystal ball, and I can tell you they've come down since last month, and they're probably going to come down a bit more. In terms of the underlying inflationary pressures, some of the questions are, do the wage increases we've seen start to feed into price increases? What happens to people's rent? That could potentially be going up. Are there other prices like restaurants and airfares, which have stayed on the low side, that rise? Those will all be things I'm looking for. I expect the inflation rate to stay high over the next year, not as high as it is now, but still to be uncomfortably high.
welcome back to my channel. We've got some big updates today, and this is your December 10th update regarding the next stimulus package and what's going on with negotiations, including how inflation is going to affect what happens in this stimulus package. Now, Bernie Sanders is trying to include a stimulus check for seniors, but inflation seems to be our biggest threat in regards to getting that done. So let's discuss the details, but before we jump into it, do me a quick favor, hit like, hit subscribe, and share this content with anyone who you think might find this helpful. This is a community for seniors, and my job is to be a voice for you to make sure that President Biden keeps his promise to increase Social Security benefits, increase SSI, SSDI, and VA benefits as well, on top of hopefully having a stimulus check for seniors as well. So thank you for being a part of our community, and if you really want to support my work, subscribe to my second channel. The link to that is going to be in the comments of this video, and on that channel we're going to have some updates as well, but it's mostly going to be a community where we play bingo. I'm going to be on camera with a live chat so you can chat with me and chat with the community. You can play bingo with me. I'm going to be giving away stimulus checks as well, hopefully once a week, and I'm hoping actually even more than that, depending on how big the channel gets.